Is my mic on? It is. Hello, everyone. Can we start moving away from the food and in towards the conference? I know that is a tricky thing to do because those desserts were delicious. Okay, so first of all, thanks everyone for being here this morning. We had some excellent conversations touching on Ukraine. Well, my goodness, we started the conference with the three great speakers as well, touching on human rights in Hungary, Belarus, and Russia. And then we spoke about Ukraine, the war and how it's happening. I think we had a very interesting discussion about Russia and about how not just what brought us to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but also, what we think is happening internally as well. And then we had a great conversation about the Black Sea region and the challenges that region is facing. So now we're going to be moving in a little bit towards the EU, which is an always interesting conversation and is in many ways ever evolving. So I'd like to announce our keynote speech. The Ambassador and Head of Delegation of the European Union to the Republic of Serbia, Ambassador Emanuele Giaufret. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having invited me to give this short address to this conference. It's really a pleasure and an honor for me to be with you. We've seen that you heard from Nobel Peace Prize winners earlier today, Alexandra Matvichuk, Anastasia Garin, and Vladimir Vyalichkin. And the decision towards the Nobel Peace Prize to these champions of democracy and human rights is certainly a sign of hope amidst the darkness of internal repression in Russia and Belarus, and the Russian illegal war of aggression against Ukraine. So perhaps a few words about Ukraine. As we speak, war is raging there, and the Putin regime is killing innocent Ukrainians every day. It is destroying Ukrainian infrastructure, hospitals, schools, and is creating immense economic and energy pain and difficulties throughout Europe and the world. In fact, this is not just an issue of European security, this is putting our whole international order into question. And this is why countering the Russian aggression is a task for the entire global community. President Putin's attack on Ukraine is a direct attack on democratic principles and the rules-based international order. And we need to consolidate our system of values, which is certainly under attack. And the way we respond today to Russian war will determine to a large extent the future of Ukraine, but also of our Union and our continent and beyond. The war is a watershed for the European Union. It made the European Union more united and more determined. And today I'd like to speak of three topics in that context about the future of Europe. I would like to discuss enlargement, how an enlarged union of peace and sustainable prosperity is useful and essential, I would say, in the region. I'd like to talk about the Union as a more independent body to be able to consolidate its model, but also the Union as a global actor, a champion of a rule-based international order, solidarity and cooperation. Because the key issue, in our view, is that we need now to stay united and determined to protect and preserve our system of values and our democracy. Now, first of all, let's remember that the European Union is growing and developing from crisis to crisis. And the recent crisis that we face, from COVID to the Russian war of aggression, have confirmed one more time what Jean Monnet had predicted, that Europe will be built through crisis, and it will be the sum of the solutions found for each of these crises. The European Union is more integrated and has deepened with every crisis. We made significant steps in record time towards a fiscal, energy and defense union. Brexit led to enhancing the cohesion of the union members, and no politician in Europe advocates today for his country's exit from the EU, unlike a few years ago. COVID led to the Recovery Fund, which was a breakthrough for the financial solidarity of member states. We were in the deepest recession since the World War II, and we achieved the fastest recovery since the post-war boom through the 750 billion euros recovery plan, underpinned by EU-issued bonds. That was really because we rallied behind a common recovery plan. We managed to find unity and common solutions. Russia's invasions of Ukraine prompted us to mobilize massively, to use and exploit all aspects of our foreign and defense policy, including for the first time funding the delivery of weapons for a total amount today of more than 3 billion euros. Finally, the war put the restructuring of the energy policy at the core of the attention in order to ensure energy security. And we managed in a few months to reduce the share of Russian gas in total imports of the EU from 40% before the war to a mere 9%. And we're working hard to increase further our energy independence. What is more, citizens of the European Union trust the Union more than before. The European Union enjoys the highest positive image among its citizens since 2009, according to the latest Eurobarometers. I think we can draw a conclusion: when the EU responds to the citizens' needs, when the Union is able to respond to the crisis, citizens are behind it. So in this context, enlargement policy is more than ever a geostrategic investment in the long term for peace, stability, security and prosperity on our continent. And in the last few months, again, very concrete steps were taken by the EU. A few months ago, Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia decided to submit their request, their candidacy for EU membership, because they knew that membership of the European Union was a key to peace, stability and prosperity for their own citizens. And in June, the Council of the European Union recognized Ukraine and Moldova as candidate country and offered a path to Georgia to EU membership. Secondly, in July, after long discussions, accession negotiations were opened with Albania and North Macedonia. And just 2 weeks ago, the European Commission decided to recommend the status of candidate country for Bosnia and Herzegovina. These are three very important political decisions that are now reshaping the enlargement policy and hopefully accelerate the accessions of the candidate country. We indeed envision our Western Balkan partners as future member states of the European Union. And for this very reason, we are already integrating the region in the European Union flagship initiatives. Let me mention a couple. First of all, the green transition, which of course predated the war in Ukraine by Russia, and is a response to the challenge of climate change. The green transition is also Europe's best chance of becoming energy independent, as well as tackling the challenges of climate change. And the Repower EU plan, which will help to reduce EU's and Western Balkans' dependence on Russian gas, is about this green transition as well, encourage energy diversification as part of enhancing energy security. And in that context, the Western Balkan partners have been invited to participate in the new energy platform set up by the EU on joint gas, LNG, and in the future, hydrogen purchase. And through the energy community, the European Union is also opening its electricity market to the Western Balkans. These are very concrete examples of our desire to already now bring the Western Balkans into the EU structures and initiatives. And these are all steps towards a full-fledged membership in the EU, which remains our joint objective. We are working continuously and comprehensively to make it happen, and we're looking for stronger and faster engagement of our Western Balkan partners on the reforms that are needed to align with EU common rules, practices, and policies, and eventually join the EU. As we're working outside, we also need to work inside to strengthen internally our own rules and to make our democracies more resilient. The Commission, for example, will present measures to update our legislative framework for fighting corruption in the coming year. We will raise standards on offenses such as illicit enrichment, trafficking in influence, and abuse of power, beyond the more classic offenses such as bribery. We'll keep insisting on judicial independence and protect the EU budget through the conditionality mechanism. And work is underway to protect and better empower media, and the Commission in September presented the European Media Freedom Act, a new set of rules to protect media pluralism and independence inside the EU. As a matter of fact, we need to defend ourselves against foreign autocracies who resort to hybrid warfare against our democratic model. Foreign interference, and in particular foreign disinformation and information manipulation, poses a clear threat to our democracy, our society, our stability, and eventually our security. Russian state media and the ecosystem around them are, for example, being used as instruments to push false narratives, to manipulate and to mislead. And they are an integral part of the aggression. Russia is not just bombing houses, infrastructures, people, but they're also bombing people's minds and spirits, including in the Western Balkans. We need to better shield ourselves from malign foreign interference that is spreading disinformation from the internet to the halls of our own universities. This is why the Commission will present a Defense of Democracy package in the spring. And of course, this is not only about Europe inside the European Union, it's also about our closest partner. So we need to work hard to build resilience also in the states of our friends, to counter malign interference and manipulation of information. We are stepping up our support to independent media and civil society and investing in digital and media literacy. And Commissioner Jourova, the Vice President of the Commission, will certainly provide you more details on this important aspect and policy line. The second element, of course, is that the European Union needs to become more resilient, strengthen its autonomy, strategic autonomy. The Vice President of the Commission, High Representative Borrell, a few days ago, gave a speech to the EU ambassadors and highlighted how our prosperity has long been possible thanks to cheap energy coming from Russia and access to big Chinese market for import and export. And we need to rethink these models because some of the assumptions on which we were based are no longer true. And certainly we need to find new ways for energy supplies from inside the EU because the one produced at home is always the safest energy source. But all these changes will produce strong restructuring of our economy. So we need to be prepared and embrace this change and manage them. We also need to be prepared to shoulder more responsibility when it comes to ensuring our own security, for which we've been heavily relying on our close friends in the US. European security and defense has evolved more in the last few months than in the last 2 decades. We continue working hard to build a defense union, and we've started implementing an ambitious plan of action for strengthening EU security and defense policy by 2030 called the Strategic Compass, which foresee the development of capabilities, but also strengthening the partnership with our closest friends. But the aggression on Ukraine has also prompted very concrete actions in the last few months and weeks. For example, as part of the European Peace Facility, the EU foreign ministers agreed to establish an EU military assistance mission to support the Ukrainian armed forces, which will train around 15,000 troops on EU soils. And as I've said, more than 3 billion euros have already been allocated for purchasing weapons to assist the Ukrainians to defend themselves against the aggression. Also, a few days ago, upon request of Armenia, the European Union deployed a monitoring capacity mission to monitor the situation at the border region between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The objective of this mission is to support confidence building between the two countries and to allow the EU to better support the work of the Border Commission. That was an example of very rapid reaction to a request coming from a two-partner country in the Caucasus. Thirdly, the European Union needs to continue to be a key actor in promoting a rule-based international order that supports solidarity and international cooperation. The willingness to work with partners on all issues is a hallmark of the EU support to multilateralism. It builds on the vital agreement and relationship that connect the European Union not only with its closest neighborhoods, the Western Balkans, its southern and eastern neighborhood, but also beyond that, Africa, the Indo-Pacific, South America, and the Gulf. It draws on a shared respect for the UN Charter, which is now more relevant than ever, as well on agreed values and principles. So we will remain steadfast supporters of multilateral solutions to global problems, from climate change to nuclear non-proliferation. We also need to offer effective solutions to our partners if we want to maintain the attractiveness of a rule-based and value-based multilateral order. A year ago, the European Union launched the so-called Global Gateway Investment Program. And since then, the demand for a strong and value-based infrastructure investment program has only grown stronger. COVID-19 highlighted the urgency, for example, of investing in a resilient health system, but also in digital infrastructure. Also, more and more countries are dealing with the rise in energy and food prices, and we need to give concrete answers to these problems. And also we've seen that the Belt and Road debt crisis is now in full swing. So the Global Gateway is a response to this situation, an opportunity to end unhealthy dependency and invest in partnership of equals instead. And I come to the conclusion of my intervention. If we look at facts, there are certainly many challenges around us, but the EU is enjoying the highest level of support, both internally and externally. Unity is the only solution to the ongoing security crisis, and the enlargement process is more than ever a geopolitical investment, and the Western Balkans countries should use this window of opportunity to advance towards accession. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, is visiting the region these days. She's actually heading to Tirana as I speak, and she'll be in Belgrade tomorrow. Her visit is a clear demonstration of our commitment and determination to bring the accession process forward and provide concrete answers to people's problems. We all know that the path towards accession goes through reforms. And this is the winning choice for the region, for Serbia, and for the European Union. Thank you very much.
Of the video.